Recording in progress.
Okay, so I'll go again. I will say that Boker Tov, everyone. It is a joy to welcome those that are joining us in Facebook, in YouTube, and of course in Zoom. And we acknowledge also the presence of those joining us in person. I like to say that we are back into starting a bit late. Our tradition here at TVT is that people start to walk in from Torah study. So for those that are switching from Torah study into services, it's just a link. For those that are coming from Torah study, it takes a few more minutes, as our services always were announced at 10 a.m., but we start at 10:10, 10:12. When you have your crowd also joining you online, it gets more complicated to be late. So we will be starting our service, and I want to invite you to try to find a few moments of prayer, a few moments of connection. The function of the Siddur, of the order that we follow when we daven, is to help us find connection, whether we are connecting with the community virtually or we are connecting with the community in person. We are trying to connect to our souls. Where we are doing Tfilat Yachid, we are praying on our own, or we are praying in a minyan, in a group of 10. We are trying to find a moment of meaningful connection with our own souls. I invite you to open your Siddurim on page 186. The first blessing that we say in the morning that doesn't have the structure of a blessing. It's by definition different. We say, Modeh ani lefanecha. We give thanks to God for being who we are, for having the ability to recognize the beauty of our own existence, and having God trust to become the best version of ourselves. Page 186.
Moda ani lefanecha, Ruach chai v'kayam, shechezarta b'nishmati, b'chemla rabba emunatecha. Moda ani lefanecha, Ruach chai v'kayam, shechezarta b'nishmati, v'chemla rabba emunatecha. Moda ani lefanecha, Ruach chai v'kayam, shechezarta b'nishmati, v'chemla rabba emunatecha.
Modeh ani lefanecha, Ruach chai v'kayam,
shechezarta b'nishmati, v'chemla rabba emunatecha.
Modeh ani lefanecha,
Ruach chai
chai v'kayam, shechezarta
b'nishmati, v'chemla rabba emunatecha.
And as we enter this sanctuary, as we build this sanctuary together, those that are joining us online and those that are starting to come in person, we say, "Ma tovu alecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel." How wonderful is this house, this communal house that we create together. אני ברוב חסדך, אבוא ביתך, אשתך ולך קודשך, בהירתך. אדוני אהבתי מאום ביתך, ומקום משכן כבודך, ואני אשתחווה ואכרע, אברך לפני אדוני יוסי. ואני תפילתי היא לך, אדוני יהי רצון, אלוהים ברוב חסדך, ענני באמת אישך. We're on page 194. For the blessing for the well-functioning of our bodies. You can follow the words of our tradition, and alternatively, or on top of that, you can take a moment to think about any part of your body that needs a special attention, that needs some loving attentiveness. I invite you to focus for a moment in your breath Our breath is one of the most symbolic and tangible expressions of our physical existence. And at the same time, our neshima, our breath, is the key, is the access to our neshama, our souls. As we breathe, we try to bring our bodies into full connection with our souls. Once again, I invite you to take a deep breath. We're on page 196 for the blessing for our souls.
נשמה שנתת בי טהורה היא אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהורה אתה יצרת, אתה נפחת בי, ואתה נשמרה בקרבי, ואתה עתיד לתלה ממני ולהחזירה מבעתיד לבוא. כל הזמן שהנשמה בקרבי, כל הזמן שהנשמה בקרבי, מודה אני לפניך. אדוני, אלוהי ואלוהי אבותיי, אדוני, אלוהי ואלוהי אמותיי, Source of all creation, sovereign of all souls, praise are you, Adonai, whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biyado nefesh kol chai, beruach kol basar ish. Amen.
We now turn our Sidurim to page 198 for Birkot HaShachar, the blessings for the daily miracles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches
spreads the earth over the waters.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam who strengthened our steps.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam who gives strength to the weary.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam who has created all human beings equal.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me free.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam who has made me a Jew.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam who crowns Israel with splendor. We're on page 204. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו לעסוק בדברי תורה.
Amen.
O Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel may know you, by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, המלמד תורה לעמו ישראל. We're on page 206.
These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's parents, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all.
We turn our sitting to page 212 for the blessing for the Psukei de Simra.
Baruch She'amar ve'ya haolam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Chaseh ve'reshit, Baruch Omer ve'oseh, Baruch Gozer u'mekayem, Baruch merachem al haaretz, Baruch merachem al habriot, Baruch meshalem tzachar tov v'reach, Baruch ha'elad v'kayam lanetzach, Baruch podeh u'matzil, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo.
Life in the universe. One God, life of the universe. Praise and glorious ruler. Your name is eternal. Melech me'ulad,
בתשבחות, מלך מהולל, בתשבחות, ברוך אתה, אדוני, מלך מהולל, בתשבחות.
We're on page 214. We begin the Psukei de Simra in Shabbat, granting Shabbat. A beautiful song, Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat, Psalm 92.
מזמור מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. ליום השבת. מזמור מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת.
Page 215.
אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו. אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך סלה. אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך סלה. אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו.
אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו. תהילת לדוד, רוממך אלוהי המלך, והברכה שמך לעולם בהד.
בכל יום אברכך וללה שמך לעולם בהד.
גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, וגדולתו עם חקר.
גדול אדו ישבח מעשיך וגבורותיך יגידו.
הדר כבודותיך בדברי נפלאותיך עשיך.
וזוז נורותיך יאמרו וגדולתך ספרנה.
זכר רטוב בחייבהו בצדקתך ירננו.
חנון ורחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדול חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל, ברחמיו על כל מעשיו.
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך וחסידיך יברכוך.
כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, בגבורתך ידברו.
להודיע לבני האדם גבורותיו וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור בהדור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
עיני כל אליך ישתברו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעתו.
פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל חי רצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, בחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
רצון ירב יעשה, בית שבתם ישמע ויושיעם.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו ואת כל רשעים ישמיע.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו, לעולם בהד.
ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה.
We're on page 218 for Psalm 150.
כל הנשמה והללויה, הללויה. כל הנשמה והללויה, הללויה.
God of the first and the last, God of all creatures, Master of all generations, who is praised in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness and all creatures with mercy. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps. God awakens the sleeping, arouses those who slumber, gives speech to the mute. And God loosens the bonds of captives. God supports the fallen and strengthens those who are bent over. You alone do we acknowledge. We're on page 220.
Ilofinu maleshira kaya ulshane norina veyadenu frosot kenishre shamayim veraglenu kalot kayalot Ilofinu maleshira kayam oleshane norina veyadenu frosot kenishre shamayim veraglenu kalot kayalot En anachnu maspikim lehodot lecha ולברך את שמך מלכנו אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלך מלכי המלכים מלך מלכי המלכים מלך מלכי המלכים מלא שירה קיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות מעיינות ופופינו מלא שירה קיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כעיינות. For every mouth will acknowledge you and every tongue pledge homage to you. Every knee bend in your presence, every upright person shall bow before you. Every heart will revere you, and every inmost thought will sing to your name. Let all my bones exclaim, who is like you, Adonai? O my soul, and let my inner being praise your holy name. We're on page 222 for the end of Ishmat Kol Chai and also the blessing that concludes the Psuke de Simra.
שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נבע תהילה, בפי ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש. ובמקלות ריבתמך בית ישראל, נאית בר שמך מלכנו, בכל דור ודור. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ. כי לך נאה, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, שהושבח הלב וזמרה, עוז וממשלה, נצח, גדולה, גבורה, תהילה ותפארת, קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודעות, מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו,
אל מלך גדול ותשבחת, אל ההודעות אתון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך מלכי העולמים. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא יברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. תהי שמירה במבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך יתברך וישבח, יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשא בריחו לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן בעלמא, ואמרו
Amen. We turn our Syrian to page 226 for Baruch, the communal blessing that opens the gates toward the Shema, to our communal acknowledgement of God's unity.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
May be seated. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. And as we get closer to the Shema, we say, Me'ir la'aretz, the one who illuminates the world. I invite you to think about those places in your life in which you need to find sunlight, and try to dedicate some attention to the perception, to noticing that light. Al-Mehir לארץ ולהרים, עליה ברחמים, המאיר לארץ ולהרים, עליה ברחמים, ובטובו מחדש בכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית, הרי הוא מסך אדוני כולם בחוכמה עשית, מלוא הארץ קניינך, קניינך, אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו חמלה גדולה ויתרה חמלת עלינו. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai our God, gracing us, surpassing compassion. בעינינו בתורתך, בדבק ליבנו במצוותיך. Lighten our eyes with your Torah, focus our minds on your mitzvot. Unite our hearts in love, reverence for your name. Gather us in peace from the four corners of the earth, and if you are wearing a talit, you can bring the four corners of your talit, your four tzitziot together as a symbol of our search for internal unity. And lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, work wonders. You chose us. Truly, you drew us near to your great name, that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Praise be you, Adonai, who chooses your people Israel in love. Baruch ata Adonai, abocher be'amo Israel, be'ahava.
Amen.
On page 232.
Shema,
Shema
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. We continue on page 234 with Ve'ahavta. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם נאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. We continue in English, middle of page 236. Adonai said to Moses as follows, "Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord of blue to the fringe at each corner. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so you do not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urge. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת, אמת ויציב ואהוב, בחביב בנורא ואדיר, בטוב ביפה, הדבר עשה עלינו לעולם בהד. אמת אלוהי עולם מלכנו, צור יעקב מגן אישנו לדור ודור, הוא קיים ושמו קיים, מכסהו נחום מלכותו, באמונתו לעד קיימת, בדבריו חיים וקיימים, נאמנים ונחמדים, לעד ולעולמי עולמים. From Egypt you redeem us, freeing us from bondage. For that you beloved, your beloved sang praise, exalting you. Your dear ones, offer him songs, praise, blessing, and thanksgiving to your sovereign, the living and enduring God. The Birkat HaGeulah, the blessing that we call Michamocha, comes after reciting Be'afta, after reminding ourselves that we need to engage in our lives and trying to find God, to find meaning through loving our way through. Love your way through. And as we love our way through, we remind ourselves that there are sometimes huge obstacles, as the Red Sea, that they seem to be impossible. And we remind ourselves that when we have the ability to love our way through, when we feel loved, Ava Rava Avtanu, we say before the Shema. We try to recognize all the loving signs, all the loving presences that we have in our lives. And then we say, listen, Shema, try to become perceptive of that love that is around us and that love, that be'afta, that emerges from within us. And so we face obstacles, which are a part of life, obstacles that seem to be impossible, unbeatable. We remind ourselves that we need to love our way through, that we need to make the first step in order to get to the other side of the sea. And so Moshe, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you together, lifting their voices with joy. Who is like you, O God, the God that comes from within, the God that helps us love our way through. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. We are on page 240. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi kamocha ne'edar b'kodesh. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi kamocha ne'edar b'kodesh. Nora tehilot oseh peleh. Nora tehilot oseh peleh. שירה חדשה, שיבחו גאות, לשמחה על שפת הים. שירה חדשה, שיבחו גאות, לשמחה על שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם בארץ. או ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל ובנו מחייבה בישראל. ויהי גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל. ילאי לי ברוך אתה Adonai Goel Israel. We turn toward Jerusalem, symbol of our eternal capital, our eternal search for spiritual center. We're on page 242 for Tfilat Amidah.
Adonai, sefatai tiftach, ufi yagir tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare my praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imatenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון גומל חסדים טובים, קונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד עטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים, תומך נופלים ברופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, למען אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה המתים.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך על הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
יזמחו מלכותך שומרי שבת וכל היום הנתים מקדשקש בהם, ולא יסבב את הנגו מטוב וחפש, ובראש תקרת השתפת ימים אותו קראת השכל למסה ולשי, אלוהינו ולא יעבד לנו ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדשך. Shalom. And peace, goodness, and blessing, grace, kindness, and mercy to us and to all your people, Israel. We're on page 258. Baruch atah Adonai, mevarech et amo Israel b'shalom. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel, who grant your people Israel peace. We will now start our Torah service. Miriam, can I ask you to, Rabbi Miriam, can I ask you to take the Torah from the ark? You have someone else? No, so we are going to turn our sermon to page 362. En kamocha Elohim Adonai.
En k'maasecha
Open the ark until Ki Mitzion.
כל עולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני יעש ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה, תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה, תורה, לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד, אחד אלוהינו, גדול אדוננו, קדוש שמו. Adonai iti uneromema shemo yachdav.
מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך כל ישראל. מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך כל ישראל.
אין אדיר כאדוני ואין ברוך כבן אברהם. אין גדולה כתורה ואין דשניה כישראל.
מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך כל ישראל. מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך כל ישראל. אין אדור כאדוני, אין בהתיק כבן אברהם, אין קדושה כתורה, בין תומכיה כישראל. מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך כל ישראל. מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך כל ישראל. אין טהור כאדוני,
ואין יחיד כבן אברהם. אין כבירה כתורה ואין למדניה כישראל.
מפיהם,
מפיהם יברך כל ישראל. מפיהם, מפיהם יברך כל ישראל.
אין פודה ימי ויסידת אדוני, ואין צדיק כבן אברהם, אין קדושה כתורה, ואין תומכיה כישראל. מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך כל ישראל. מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך כל ישראל. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This is such a good Shabbos. Parashat Shoftim is one of the richest Torah portions in the entire Torah. And also it's my daughter's birthday, which makes it particularly special. So before we get into the reading of the Torah portion, I just want to point something out. I want you to have in mind what we have been discussing for the last couple of weeks. One of the main motifs of the book of Devarim, of Deuteronomy, is love. Right? We have the Shema, the readings of the Shema, and we're talking about the ability to listen as an expression of love. And then we spoke about the ability to discern. In Parashat Re, right, we said, Re, שמתי לפניך את הברכה ואת הקללה. I had set before you the blessing and the curse. And we spoke about this idea that listening is also the foundation for blessing. And when you turn your back, when you are stiff-necked people, when you turn your back, literally you turn your back, and you are indifferent, well, indifference might be the foundation of curses. Or at least one of them. And now we're in Parashat Shoftim. And we start exploring a different or an additional idea in order to build this society that eventually will enter the land. So, what's the idea that Parashat Shoftim will present before us or for us? Silence. Shoftim means judges. So, and what do the judges do? They judge. We need a lawyer to tell us that. Now, thank you, Mike. I appreciate your input. Now, what's the topic of Parashat Shoftim? Tzedek, justice. Justice. And so I thought that this week I came to
to believe, at least for this week, that there is a meta idea that is not necessarily justice. It has to do with justice. That is holding this Torah portion the entire time in all the topics that the Torah portion presents, and there are many. So, can you share the text? So I'm going to read from Deuteronomy 16, verses 18 to 20. Shoftim ve'shotrim titen lecha. You shall appoint magistrates and officials for your tribes in all the settlements that the Lord your God is giving you. And they shall govern the people with due justice. You shall not judge unfairly. You shall show no partiality. Now, this is a very important word. Why? Because love is completely partial. We're talking about love, so the Torah is saying, no, it can't be just love. There should be something else. We can't manage this society because you love your brother and you love your sister and your uncle, and so that is going to be the driving force. No, we need to have some principles. And justice, as opposed to love, is impartial. Love is partial. You shall not judge unfairly. You shall show no partiality. You shall not take bribes. Now, the bribes, we'll talk about them in one more moment. For bribes blind the eyes of the discerning and upset the plea of the just. And then we say, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice, you shall pursue, that you may thrive and occupy the land. The pursuit of justice has to do with thriving as a society. We'll get to that in one more moment once again. And you occupy the land that the Lord your God is giving you. Now, classic question, and I will ask that question. Why twice? Why it is justice, justice you shall pursue? Happy to hear your ideas. And you don't have a microphone, so I'll repeat them so everybody can hear. Emphasis. Good point. So the Torah wants to emphasize something. Classic commentary says, you say it twice. So it's really important. Justice is really important. So one explanation could be emphasis. What else? What? It gives, okay, so it elevates. It gives gravitas to the statement. Very good point. What else it could be? Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Pay attention. It's a call to attention, a shaking call. Love it. This is the first for me. Very nice idea. Relationship. Give me more. Beautiful. So Miriam is going to where I was hoping to be at the end, which is trying to, no, we're going to get there anyway, trying to tie the dots. She says, well, you need to balance tzedek. And tzedek is reciprocal, might be a social contract. And tzedek cannot be standing on its own. We need something else. We need love. Beautiful idea. We'll get back to that later. Anything else? So, classic commentary. The classic commentary, Rashi says, it's not just that you need to pursue tzedek, but the search,
the way in which you approach that search should be also a righteous way. For the sake of justice, you can't do whatever comes to your mind, or you can't behave unfairly. The end doesn't justify the means. In classic commentary, tzedek tzedek tirdof, justice, justice you shall pursue, means the end doesn't justify the means. The end is a worthy end, and therefore the means, they should be also worthy, they should be righteous ways. So tzedek is the way in the pursuit of tzedek as an end destination. So with this idea, I'll try to offer also some perspective, but when we finish our conversation, I want to show you a few more things. Zach, are you being able to show the text? Here and there. Okay, you show, so we're going to go back and forth. I'm going to take you for some. So if we go, now I want to tell you, I just want to warn you, this Torah portion is so rich. And in many parts of this Torah portion go back to some of the things that we are going to explore. So I just want you to be aware that I'm going to be skipping a lot for the sake of our conversation. But I do want you to be aware of in chapter 17, 1 to 20. I'm going to make it faster than that, don't worry. So if you go to verse 7. Now, the Torah enters a different area now. Chapter 17, Zaki, you're not in the right place. Yeah, now you are. So, but go in English. You have that marked also in English. So now the Torah is going to talk about the process of justice. And we are going to talk about witnesses. What happens when a witness shares a false testimony? What happens when you don't have enough evidence for an accusation? What happens when you are falsely accused? So I want to give you a few heads up. So the Torah says basically, when you are accusing someone and it turns out that your testimony is false, so you become guilty of the same accusation. It's a big deal. Now, if you try to translate that for a moment to our lives, think about how we speak to each other in social media. Think about what would happen if we would hold ourselves accountable to what we say in social media. If we would hold ourselves accountable or to the same expectations that we have from others that we criticize very strongly because they are not aware, because they are not mindful enough, because they are, in our opinion, not kind enough. So think about when we are accusing, what would happen if we were responsible for that same accusation, just as an idea. Now, there's another thing that the Torah discusses. For example, what happens with someone who accidentally kills someone? And then, in this search for reciprocity, the family of that person that was killed, or in an act of anger, wants to kill this person who accidentally killed someone else. So the Torah will describe here safe islands for people. They will describe the creation of 3 different cities. One of them in which you will put people that need some shelter for some time until some situations calm down. So they are not held accountable for a crime that they didn't commit. So the interesting thing is about protecting those that are innocent, while many others might think that they are responsible for something terrible that happened. So the system needs to be able to protect these people. Now, I want to go forward. We also speaks about, the Torah also will speak about kings. Now, you might wonder, why would the Torah open a conversation
about kings, and I'm reading now in verse 14. So what are the laws for the king? The Torah says, if after you have entered the land that the Lord your God has assigned to you, and taken possession of it and settled on it, you decide, I will set a king over me. Now, look at the language. If after you enter the land, you decide. Like, why you decide? Because Torah is trying to tell us, like, you don't need a king. Like, in the Torah idea, the king is a strange thing. It's what other peoples are doing. And that the Torah is trying to set a standard that is very different. Where is the law going to come from in the context of Torah? Is it going to come from a human being? No, it's coming from God. It's the Torah. And how we apply the law? Well, it's a discussion between the sages, between the elders, between the judges, between the officers, between the people. But then the Torah says once again, if you really, really, really want, these are the laws. What are the laws? He shouldn't be rich, or she shouldn't be rich. And this is by the horses, etc. expressed. This person shouldn't be too busy judging, but he should hold all the time these laws next to him or next to her. This person shouldn't have too many wives. Now, who break all these laws together? All of them. Of course, Solomon, but also David. The idea of kingdom doesn't work well for us. Not in the ideas that we're trying to hold. The Torah, what's the enterprise of the Torah? One of the most important enterprises of Torah. Community. And how you translate that into society. So I give you something that Rabbi Jonathan Sachs says. That he says that one of the ideas behind Torah is for us to become a nation of storytellers. Of what story? The story of our laws. The idea is that all of us have the ability to leshanen, to repeat, shinantan levanecha, and you shall repeat these laws to your children, to repeat these laws. We are supposed to internalize the law, and yes, we need to have institutions, but there is a huge appeal to our self-awareness, to our ability to hold on to the law. I want to show you one more thing, and then I want to go to the very end. I want to skip chapter 18, Zach. We're going to get back to that later. Give me 1 second. It turned out to be also a bit long for printing. Okay. I'm going to go to the very end. Remind me to, okay, I will mention just one thing. There, just as I think it's such a nice thing to be aware of that. There are 4 individuals that when you are going to war, they are not supposed to participate in the war. They are supposed to be sent back home. Who are they? You know? Who are those that are supposed to go back home? The one who is about to get married. Correct? The one, I will repeat just for the purpose of microphone. The one who hasn't done the Hanukkah Bayit, who hasn't entered his new house. The one who has, you say, planted a vineyard. Okay, so planted a vineyard, who is about to get married, or the one who has planted a vineyard and haven't enjoyed the fruits of that vineyard yet. And the other one, number 4, is the one who's afraid. Torah says, if you are afraid,
and you don't have trust in God and in this group of people, you better go home because it can be contagious. So we don't want you to be here. Go home. Come next time. Now, let's talk about the other three for a moment. What's the meta idea behind the other three? Continuity, future. So it has to do with the, once again, with the social contract, with a society that acknowledges that people need to have a purpose in life. And if you haven't fulfilled that purpose, and you're about to transform, to make it to a new stage, we want to have the space in our society to allow you to do that. We want to promise that we have that awareness. And once you have fulfilled that stage and you feel whole, one of the verses that we say in this Torah portion in chapter 18, you're supposed to walk wholeheartedly with your God, has to do with fulfilling purposes. With fulfilling purposes. And if you don't fulfill your purposes, you can't be wholehearted, and you can't be in the mindset that I will suggest later, that this is the mindset that this Torah portion is suggesting. Let's go to the very end. I want to share chapter 21, the last story. Have you heard about the Eglah Arufah? The Eglah Arufah. So are you in chapter 21? Can you see that well? You cannot see that here. I was thinking, Zach, that you can put the entire thing here. I was. Okay. The Eglah Arufah. If in the land that the Lord your God is assigning you to possess, someone slain is found, lying in the open, the identity of the slayer not being known, your elders and magistrates shall go out and measure the distances from the corpse to the nearby towns. The elders of the town nearest to the corpse shall then take a heifer, a glah, which has never been worked, which has never pulled in a yoke, and the elders of the town shall bring the heifer down to the overflowing wadi, which is not tiled or sown. There in the wadi, they shall break the heifer's neck. The priest, sons of Levi, shall come forward, for the Lord your God has chosen them to minister to him and to pronounce blessing in the name of the Lord, and every lawsuit and case of assault is subject to their ruling. Then all the elders of the town nearest to the corpse shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the wadi. And they shall make this declaration. It's a very important declaration. Our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it done. Absolve, O Lord, your people, Israel, whom you redeemed, and do not let guilt for the blood of the innocent remain among your people, Israel. And they will be absolved of blood guilt. Thus, you will remove from your midst guilt for the blood of the innocent, for you will be doing what is right in the sight of the Lord. What's the Torah talking about? They find a corpse in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't belong to anyone. And so all the cities around the corpse come and measure the distance from the corpse to their city. So the nearest city bring their elders and their magistrates. They need to bring heifer, a glah, and they need to literally cut the head of that glah, of that heifer, and wash their hands over that and say, our hands haven't shed
this blood, the blood of that person, absolve us. Why? Like, what's the story behind this story? They don't know. They want to be absolved of the guilt. They don't know, but they want to be absolved of the guilt. Why? If you don't know, if you didn't have anything to do with that, well, why you care? The reputation of the community. Good point. Other ideas? Give me one. Go here. So there is guilt even if you can't decide who has committed the crime. Very good point. So I want to give you a perspective that actually I'm basing on Mishnah Sotah chapter 9, verse 6. It took some time. It's there. What the what the Torah is trying to say is that the elders need to say, we don't want to live in a place in which we are not accountable for our fellow human beings' lives. Yes, we didn't commit this crime, but we do feel accountable for this life. We do feel accountable for the 30 people, the 30 homeless that die in Orange County every month. You didn't kill them, we didn't kill them, but nonetheless they die every month in Orange County, in the streets of our cities. What the Torah is trying to say is the fact that you haven't killed someone doesn't mean that you have nothing to do with his, her death. How you didn't notice that person? How you didn't notice that someone was wandering along in the fields outside the city? Why you didn't reach out? And so they do a ceremony. And the ceremony says two things. We are not guilty, but we are responsible. We feel accountable. And here's the word I wanted to suggest. I think that this Torah portion speaks about radical accountability. That this idea of tzedek, tzedek, you shall pursue is the fourth word, means that it's not enough that you judge fairly. You should be a seeker, not of judgment, but of justice. It's not that you just need to deal, because this is the judgment, right? Once this person dies, this is how you apply the law. But there are things, lifnei shurat adin, before coming down to the bottom line of the judgment. There are things that we can do when we pursue justice, and they can change the reality. And I want to say that that justice, that seeking of justice, as Rabbi Miriam was saying earlier, should be motivated by love and by the idea, the loving idea of the society in which we want to live. So with that said, and walking wholeheartedly with God, maybe means having the ability to, on one hand, hold justice, and on the other hand, loving kindness. Din, bechesed. And with the two of them, try to walk and build a society that is closer to our hearts. Let's get started with the reading of Parashat Shoftim. Lots of ideas. I know. You have? Do it. Yeah. Yamod, Tamod, Tamod. This is in order of Elias. This is the first one. Okay. Tamod, Tamod, La Aliyah Rishona, Tamart, Bad Yaakova, Yahba. What's the name of your mom, Tammy?
My mom is
Yoka?
Yokova.
Yaakova, Ben Moshe. Come from the other side, Tammy. Perfect. And Tammy is also, welcome Tammy to the community. She's just moved to Orange County to fulfill a very important role in the community, to be the executive director of Hillel in Orange County. So we are very excited for all the new ideas and things that she is bringing. And I want to tell you, she was a Hillel student, like you were in Hillel. Like when we found you.
When AJR's campus is no
how
longer
many-
at UCLA Hillel, but I took classes in the UCLA Hillel building.
No, I'm talking about like when you were in Cal State Fullerton.
Oh yeah, in Cal State Fullerton.
When you came to the community, like how many years?
That's
See,
very true.
almost. This is the 7th year. You were a Hill student that was visiting for the high
I've been
holidays.
involved with Hillel for a very long time, so thank you so much for your work and your involvement.
You're welcome. Baruch hu et Adonai havarach.
Baruch Adonai mevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai havarach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
שופטים ושופרים תיתן לך בכל שעריך אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך לישיבתך ושופטו את העם משפט צדק לא תטה את משפחה לא תיקר פנים ולא תיקח שחד כי השהד יעבר עיני חכמים ויסלף דברי צדיקים צדק צדק תרגוף למען תהיה ויעשת את הארץ אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נתן בכוחותינו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. תעמוד, תעמוד, לעלייה השנייה, מלכה בת חורכם. יישר כוח.
ברכו את אדונייך מבורך.
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדונייך מבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
לא תיטע להה אשרה כעץ אצל מצברך אדוני אלוהיך אשר תרלה ולא אקים לאה מצבה אשר שנה אדוני אלוהיך לא תשבע אדוני אלוהיך שובעי אשר יהיה בו מום כל דבר אהבה כי תאווה אדוני אלוהיך
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nota b'toheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
אמן. יעמוד לעלייה שלישית, גידמן גדליה בן חיים. Weizmann is you.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaBarach.
ברוך ה' מבורך לעולם ועד.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
אמן.
כי מצא בקרבך בחדשריך, אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך, איש או אישה, אשר יעשה את הרע בעיני אדוני אלוהיך לעבור בריתו, וילך לעבור אלוהים אחרים, וישתחו להם. לשמש ולירח, לכל צבא שמיים אשר לא ציוויתי, והוגד לך ושמעת, ודרשת היטב והנה אמת, נכון הדבר נעשתה התועבה הזאת בישראל.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'choheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
אמן. תעמוד למפטיר. ציד לרבקה בת שמואל ולאה. לילה פסנר. Here you go. יישר כוח.
Baruch et Adonai HaBarach.
לעולם ועד.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
This is the beginning of the next portion. So you need to be here.
No.
And I can help you if I'm looking at this. Okay, I'm going to find it in 1 second. You, thank you. This is a different kit. Oh, we're going to find a second. Here, because you're so far away. Here it is. It's here. Here it is. Okay. This is the beginning of the.
I just found it.
Yeah, no, right here. Go. Whenever you're ready.
Banu Amaru. Be'yadeinu lo
שפכו.
שפכו את הדם הזה, ועינינו לא ראו.
כפר.
כפר לעמך ישראל אשר פדית אדוני ותיתן דם נקי
כרב.
בקרב עמך ישראל ישראל נכפר להם הדם ואתה תבער הדם הנקי מקורבך כי תעשה הישר בעיני אדוני.
Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu et Torah emet v'chaye olam nata b'toheinu baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We take a moment to acknowledge all those that came up to the Torah in honor of God, Shabbat, our Torah, our community. May all of you find blessing and protection from any trouble or distress. May God bless you in all your endeavors together with all Israel. And let us say, we take also a moment to acknowledge those that are dealing with illness. We acknowledge those that are dealing with illness in their bodies and in their souls. We acknowledge those dealing with addictions. May the one who bless our ancestors, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, יברך את החולים. If you have a name that you'd like to share in this morning of Shabbos, someone you are praying for. Just say them out loud. Just bring them in. Bring them in. If you have names that you want to share and you are connecting with us in Zoom, in YouTube, Facebook, please share those names. Articulate them. Bring them to the space. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. We're on page 374 for Agva Anglelila.
בזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. שלושה דברים העולם עומד. שלושה דברים העולם עומד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים.
אליך ונשובה, קדש ימינו כקדם. Return us to you, Adonai, and we will return. Renew our days as in days of old. Meshevot el levavecha. Help us recognize that our way back, that the way to return, that teshuva starts from within our hearts. We're on page 586. בהשבותה
אל לבביך,
אל לבביך,
כי אדוני,
כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בהשבותה
אל לבביך,
אל לבביך,
כי אדוני,
כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. היום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. May we see the we take a moment to acknowledge mourners among our community. If you are during the first 7 days of mourning Shiva, please rise. And of course, as we say, please rise, it also means please share the names of those that you are remembering if you are connecting with us through social media or Zoom. If you are during the first 30 days of mourning Shloshim, please rise. If you are during the cycle of the first year of mourning, please rise and share with us the names of those that you are remembering.
John Giano.
If you have a yahrzeit this week, the anniversary of someone's passing by this time of the year in years past, please rise. Now, so you can support our fellows by standing or sitting, joining us with your voices or your hearts on page 598 for Kaddish Avelim, Mourners Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
אמן.
בעלמא דברך חירותי, וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו,
אמן.
יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמאה מאה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקדושה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו,
אמן.
יהא שלום רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו,
אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו.
May the memories of your dear ones be always a blessing. Yeh Zichram Baruch. So yesterday we had our back to school Shabbat, and it was nice to see so many children running around. And still we have some children that are in vacation, so we look forward to start seeing all of them. And I was talking to Rachel, something beautiful happened. I asked her to write that, to share that with the community. She was seeing one of our kids after a very, very long time, and he looked at her, and he said, "I am bored." And Rachel was telling me yesterday that all of a sudden, like, she couldn't hold it, but she started crying, and she missed those complaints so much. I was like, yeah, okay, I understand you. But like, just like normality, like to deal with real-time emotions with some of our children that sometimes when they are in Zoom and they know they are not going to unmute themselves to say, I'm bored.
You'd be surprised.
Well, okay. Gabriel has lots of experience teaching in Zoom too. But like, you know, Rachel told me yesterday that it made her cry. And I think that there are so many blessings that are emerging in this time. As some things are becoming a bit more normal, a new normal, but nonetheless normal. So it was so nice. And I want to remind you that next week, our normal Shabbat, and on Sunday, next week, there's a community event in Aliso Viejo. The Klezmatics are coming to Orange County. It's going to be a beautiful opportunity to just enjoy a different afternoon. This is happening at 4 p.m. in Aliso Viejo, and it's a community event. It happens in a different synagogue, but it's a community event. And I want you to know also that we have already for the event, I think, 400 people that have RSVP'd. So, you know, make sure that you get your space. It's a mask-on event. I think it will be very, very nice. And on Saturday the 28th, we have our Havaya school is going to be back, and we have our Slichot evening. Laila, we are going to be changing the dresses of the Torah. You're going to do that. And we will do that not as we used to do that was at the end of the service of Slichot, but this time at the very beginning, because it will give us the opportunity to have the children here while we are changing the dresses. So please join us. Everybody is going to be here. Rabbi Miriam will be here. I will be here. Rabbi Daniel will be here. Tammy, maybe you'll be here. And one more thing, we have a visitor from Israel who will be sharing with us, who will be trying to help us learn a little bit more about how a little contribution coming from our saliva can help save the lives of many, many, many people. So we're going to have a short talk about that. So lots of little nice things will be happening on the 28th, so make sure that you RSVP and you join us. And as we said last week, this week we are going to conclude our service with Ikdal. So you get to develop your spectrum of Jewish poetry. We're on page 628. Wait a second, and I will, you know what? We're not gonna start this. Oh, did you hear that?
Whoa.
We can't do that.
Huh?
We just can't do that. Something happened. Okay. Now we're fine. Apologize for this distraction. But I think this melody is coming all the way from the community, the Jewish community in Saloniki. So, Igdal Elohim Chai וישתבח נמצא בנט אל מציאותו נמצא בנט אל מציאותו שום בין ראשית לראשיתו ראשון בין ראשית לראשיתו ay ay ya da 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 ya la da ya da 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 ya da la 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 da ya da la da da ya ba da la da ya la da ya la da la da ya da la 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 ya da la da eno adon olam lechol notzar yoreh gedulato ומלכותו יורה גדולתו ומלכותו, שפע נבואתו, נתנו אל אנשי סגולתו, ותפארתו אל אנשי סגולתו, ותפארתו. לא קם בישראל כמו שהוד נביא ומביא תמונתו, נביא ומביא תמונתו. תמונת אמת נתן להמוהל על יד נביאו, נאמן ביתו על יד נביאו, נאמן ביתו. לא יחליף ההל, אלא ימיר דתו לעולמים לסולתו, לעולמים לסולתו. סוף ויודע סתרנו, מביא לסוף דבר בקדמתו, מביא לסוף דבר בקדמותו. יאי 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 די 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 יאי די 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 ya la 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 ya la ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 דומה לאיש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרשע רע כרישתו, נותן לרשע רע כרישתו. ישלח לקץ ימים פדות עולם, כל חי